the person who loves walking will walk further than the person who loves the destination. And so for today's video, we're talking about this concept of enjoying the process. So there's a bit to unpack here. And before we dive into it, I'd like to give a bit of context. So for those who don't know me, my name is David. I'm a student here at MIT studying architecture and design. And I make these videos almost like journal entries where I talk about thoughts, ideas that I have, philosophies, technology, design, a lot of different things. But for today, I had this idea of talking about process after talking to one of my good friends, Seth, who's actually a good friend of mine I met here in Boston. He's a student at Tufts studying philosophy and computer science. And you might see him in another video. He really wants to be a guest in one of these videos. He's a big fan of the YouTube channel, and he keeps asking me to, interview him or have a conversation with him and post it online. So we have a lot in common. He's around 20 or 19. I don't know. He's very young, much younger than I am. And he's a CTO of a company right now. He's building a startup here in Boston. He might talk about it if ever he's on the show. But anyways, we had a coffee chat this morning in Boston. It's a beautiful day. It's almost summer and the weather is getting a bit better. Also, if you probably noticed from my voice, I'm recovering from a little flu. A lot of people are getting sick these days with flu season coming around, but I'm slowly recuperating. So apologies if my voice is a bit nasally. But we were talking about the idea of being paranoid as a founder because like I said, he's a CTO, he's a founder of his company. And I was an ex-founder as well. I've experienced building startups and being in that process of, just building something from scratch. And we related with the fact that a lot of founders, us included, are paranoid by nature, meaning that we are always having doubts and we're always overthinking about the future and the past and what we're doing right now and always trying to look forward to the next thing and the next thing. And that can be draining, emotionally draining, because, when you're building a company, especially in startup culture, it's uncharted territory. There's not a lot of precedence. You're trying to build something scratch, something new that hasn't been done before. And so you're a pioneer. You're someone who's, trying to bring value to the world through technology and through your own creativity and what you think the world should have and how it should be. So, with that comes a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. You're always thinking about the next thing. And that can be dangerous. If ever you've had experience starting a project or something new that hasn't been done before, and you're, on the front line, maybe you have a partner or a co-founder with you, or maybe you're alone, that's even harder. And that can be challenging because what happens is you have to put yourself accountable every single day, and that can be very, very difficult. You can wake up one day and just want to give up, or you lose faith and you lose that drive that you initially had when you started something, right? So that's what we're talking about. I don't have a lot of time because I have to leave in 15 minutes. I have a dinner with some friends. It's so nice outside. So I just wanted to sit down and kind of dump some of my thoughts because I just came back from my coffee chat with my friend Seth, and I thought it would make a good video. And he even suggested oh, you should make a video about this. That could be fun. So I was yeah, maybe I should do something quick. But what I think is important, if you're in that category of people who you're building something, maybe you have a few projects here and there, or you have ambition to build a startup or to build a company, or it could even just be a passion project. It could just be an endeavor that you think, I want to do this for myself and I'm creating something new, but you might have a lot of energy in the beginning, but then as you do it, you will have doubts. The same way, when I started this YouTube channel a month ago, I had a clear vision. I was I'm going to sit down every now and then, and I have a lot of thoughts that I would love to share with the world, and hopefully you guys resonate with it. If not, it's fine. But I had this vision where, hey, I want to make a YouTube channel and build a community of people who are like-minded individuals who like startups, technology, spirituality, that kind of stuff. And you have the energy in the beginning, but then as you go and you build the project and you go forward, you have doubts. And then you might one day not be, you might be like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Or am I doing the right thing? Should I outsource some things? And then you have imposter syndrome. Maybe you're not sure that what you're doing is valuable, or I'm wasting my time, or you start doubting yourself. And that's completely normal. Seth and I agree that like it's just part of the process. It's just part of putting yourself out there, or dropping everything else and just jumping. That was something that came up in our conversation, is that what happens a lot of times is that if you take the analogy of seeds and you have a garden and you're planting a lot of seeds, and each seed is like a potential project. Maybe you're part of a club, a student club, or maybe you're building a network, or maybe you're in a company, or maybe you're doing a little startup or a side gig or a side project, or you're reading on this. And, you have all these little things, and they might grow at different rates. Some seeds might grow into plants and giant trees. And then eventually you want to kind of like dive in and jump into that one thing. And that thing is like your main thing that you're focusing on. And the rest are kind of like side projects or side things that take less of a priority. The reason I'm bringing this is because at some point you have to make the jump, and you have to kind of double down on a few key things, or maybe one project or one thing, because you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You want to really focus on a few things if you want to maximize and leverage things, and eventually this grows into something better than if you try to do a bunch of different things. You're just not getting enough of that output, So, but when you do that, what happens is that because you've neglected, or you've stopped doing all the other things, that one single thing becomes a little bit scary, because then you're like, it's an all or nothing mentality, and it's a risk. It's a high risk, high reward. For example, people who are university and they have an idea, they have a group of friends that get together and they build a startup, and then eventually a lot of them, they drop out. And everyone has different decision-making heuristics. Some people drop out earlier. Some people finish their degrees. It's up to you. You have to make your own decisions. But at some point, you kind of have to double down on a few things. You can't just do everything and be mediocre at everything, right? But then once you're in that thing and you're doing whatever activity you are, if let's say we pick startups, and a lot of you guys asked me questions about startups on like, what are some tips, what I should be doing? And my general response is that you have to pick something you truly enjoy doing, that you're obsessed about, that you have an unfair advantage in. And usually it's something you're already a part of, like a group of or community of people that you're part of. Maybe it's through your work, your network, where you grew up, who you grew up with, the stuff you did as a kid or when you were really young and you're just naturally good at. Because that thing, most of the time, you will be drawn more because you enjoy doing it. And that's really, if I go back to the idea or the quote of like the person who enjoys walking walks further than the person who enjoys a destination. If you're in it for an external reason, if you're in it because you want to get rich, or you're in it because you want to be happy, or you think that success down the line in a few years or several years will bring you fulfillment and joy, or maybe you'll get validation from your peers, from your parents, from yourself, because you think that like, once I'll achieve that, then I'll be happy, then I'll be satisfied. Then you're in it for the wrong reasons, and you will burn out or you will give up really early on because you will not have been enjoying the process of whatever you're doing. In that sense, you want to be the person who enjoys the craft, who enjoys whatever you're doing. If you're a builder, if you're a software engineer, if you love coding and you just love going into the like the details and the weeds, and you just want to like really dive deep into that thing, you will outcompete everybody else, because nobody can beat someone who like truly enjoys what they're doing. If you love reading about, philosophy, and you love learning about whatever subject it is, and you're consuming and you're immersing yourself, you're listening to podcasts, you're talking to people about it, you're looking up on the internet like certain things and niches and, blog posts and forums, then you will just outcompete everyone. And I'm bringing competition in it because the reality is that we're in a world where, biological evolution is based on competition. It's just a scientific fact that when you're born, you're in this world, we all have different advantages, different disadvantages. And to survive, you need to compete. You need to get skills. You need to learn how to fight, learn how to defend yourself, and grow, stack some skills, and then eventually make a living for yourself. It's a tough world. Like, it's not easy, and everybody's dealt a different set of cards. Now, you can play the victim mentality and say that, like, it's unfair for me, or you can just rise above and actually just grind and go for it and just do what you need to do and be strategic about it to get the things you want, because you can achieve those things. You just have to put your mind to it and work hard and be strategic. But then if you're working hard and you're doing whatever it takes to achieve that thing because you think that once I'll achieve that thing, then I'll be happy. When I have those things, or when I make that amount of money, or when I have those friends, or I have that partner, then I'll be happy. You will be miserable. And the best example for this is if you ask anyone what they're doing right now, they like every milestone that they have done, they almost brush it off as like, oh yeah, this is just what I did. Like, it's very rare to find people who really are grateful on a day-to-day basis of the things that they have in their lives, because it's human nature. It's wired in your psychology that, like, when you achieve something, in the moment you get a boost of dopamine, you've achieved a hard goal, you made it, you're happy, you're satisfied, you get congratulated, you tell your friends, your family, whatever, and then you move on. And then a few months after, it becomes normal. It becomes a part of who you are. And down the line, it's just your common baseline. The best example for that is that a lot of people I've met here who studied MIT or Harvard or really prestigious universities, myself included, the moment we got accepted, it was the world. We were like ecstatic. We were immensely grateful, and we couldn't believe it. We had imposter syndrome. But then down the line, you talk to them, a lot of those grads, and it becomes normal. It becomes a part of their identity. It becomes, we did it, but now we want the next thing. And you see that in entrepreneurs all the time. A lot of, high performers, they are always looking for the next thing and the next thing. And there's almost this level of like never being satisfied with things. And that can be dangerous, but it is also what fuels them to be better. Because if you think about it, you have to have that trait if you want to perform better. And I've had, just this week I had a talk with my ex-boss who's from Dubai. He's a real estate guy, really amazing founder, worked in like his startup for more than a decade, very successful. But even him at 35, he's still thinking of what's the next thing. And he's not looking back at all the successes he's had. And I had to step in during lunch and tell him hey man, you're doing a good job. You're doing what it takes and you're on the right path. It's okay. You'll figure the next thing out. But it's a trait I found amongst founders and amongst, high achievers, is that there's always a goalpost that's being pushed further and further and further and further. And that's okay. That's what self-growth is. In order to grow, you need to kind of change your habits and you need to push yourself to change and to be better. And you have to be your own worst critic. But then it becomes dangerous when that takes advantage, or it takes over your own health and your own mental health and well-being. And so when I was talking to Seth this morning, we agreed that, hey, if you're in it because you just enjoy doing it, you love the process, you love the grind, you're learning, you're taking time to look back and see all the things you've achieved. But then you also have to look at the future and look ahead. And we both agree that there's a fine balance between present, past, and future, where you have to be present and appreciate what it is you're doing in this moment, right? Because that's all we have is the present moment. But then you also want to obviously look ahead, be future oriented, look for the cutting edge technologies, look for what's out there, push yourself to put yourself out there and network, talk to people, learn new things, be open-minded. That's how you're going to grow, right? And then you also want to have a mix where you're looking back. I mean, he mentioned a really good quote from Steve Jobs, which is, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it looking backwards. And it's something I've seen for myself. I've understood myself a lot more by meditating, taking time to introspect, look at my past, journal the things. I mean, even these videos, sometimes I look back at them and I'm like, wow, I understand myself a lot better, because it's like, looking backwards, you understand some of the things that in the moment you didn't know why you were doing it, but then it all makes sense once you look backwards. And so you need a mix of that as well. And so that really is the key of if you're like in a slump, or you wake up one morning and you're like, why am I doing this? Or you have doubts and you're unsure, really ask yourself, am I doing this because I enjoy doing this? Or am I doing this because I think I will get the reward in the future? And obviously we have desires. A lot of the things we do is because we want to look long-term. We want to have, delayed gratification and have long-term successes, and things take time. And so we're like investing in ourselves, or we're investing our future. And that's a good mentality to have. That's a mentality I've adopted for myself many times at a very young age, where at like 18, I started meditating daily. I started reading books, listening to podcasts while my friends were going out, doing drugs, partying. Not to say that I didn't do those things as well, but I was like mindful that like in healthy doses, that's okay. But then I want to invest in myself and do the things that I know will pay off dividends in the future. But it's important to not burn yourself out in the process, because it is difficult to do those things. It's not easy. The good comes from the hard is one of my favorite quotes, and something I live in my life is that the hard things are what really makes you grow and forces you to evolve and become a better version of yourself. But then if you dive into that hustle culture and you're just hustling and just doing hard things all the time without enjoying what it is you're doing, it becomes dangerous, and you can fall and burn out and hate yourself and doubt yourself. And you really don't want to avoid this, because you're the only person, like yourself, you are the only person who truly understands yourself. One thing I said is like, I have a theory, or it's not my theory, but it's the idea that like we're all single player people playing, or we're a single player. I forgot the quote, but it's like something around like we're all playing a single player game in a multiplayer environment. I think that's the quote. And which basically means that all we really have is ourselves, our own thoughts, and then we're just trying to understand other people. And so if you are your own worst enemy, you are in it for a very, very hard time. And so my reminder for you and for myself is that the person who loves to walk, the person who loves to do the things that they do every single day, and they enjoy the process, they cherish it, they try to, obviously challenge themselves and try different things, but then they don't beat themselves up for not achieving that goal right away, because it takes time. those people will do much better in the short term and the long term than the person who is constantly looking for the next hit, the next win, the success, the quick goals. Especially in today's environment and today's society, we are bombarded on social media with people on LinkedIn or on Instagram showcasing their successes, their achievements. Maybe they got a big tech company job. Maybe they, sold their company, or maybe they, got married or have amazing, body goals, and they're showing off their body and everything. If you're constantly bombarded by that, it's normal to feel like you're not doing enough and you're not achieving your goals in the moment. But I'm here to remind you that those things take time. It's compound interest. But the key of compound interest is you have to do it every single day, at least try to attempt it. But you have to brick by brick just, get into the habit of just being better than you were the day before. And if you have that mentality and you just improve yourself and you just focus on you, you will be happier, you will be less stressed, and eventually down the line in a few years, because things take time, it takes at least 10 years to build a company, for example, then those things will happen. But you have to be patient and you have to be calm and you have to have trust in the process. But if there's one thing that's true, is that compound interest is a real thing, but you have to put in the work every single day and not lose faith in what you're doing. And so this is my advice for today. It is very fast-paced, or it's more kind of like punchy than my other videos, but it's just because it's the middle of the day. It's like 5:42 right now, and I don't have a lot of time, so I really want to get as much value as I could in 20-ish minutes. But that's it for me today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. You can do it. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.